Hey guys, Pam again. So this is actually going to be part one of a part two video. Um, this is going to be about grieving. Grieving is one of the most important parts of losing a child. Whether it's a chemical pregnancy, whether it's a miscarriage, whether it's a stillborn child, whether it's an infant loss, whether it's a 6-month-old or a toddler or a teenager or a grown adult. A child loss is a child loss, no matter what stage or age that child was. So this video is just about grieving. So I kind of want to go into, first of all, I want to give credit to the information that I'm going to kind of share with you, where I got it. I got these books, my husband and I were sent from my aunt, Terry, after Aiden died. They're by, man, I cannot pronounce his last name. Kenneth Hogue, something like that. It's basically journey through grief, and there's 4 books. A Time to Grieve, which is where I'm going to be talking to you from tonight. Experiencing Grief, Finding Hope and Healing. I don't know if you can see these. And then Rebuilding and Remembering. So tonight I'm just going to talk to you. I'm not going to this is not going to be a huge long video. But I read a little bit about, from this first book here, and there's some things in here that are super important about grieving. Like, you would not think that someone who has lost a child, or even anybody in your life, that it would be so detrimental to their healing process, that they go through all of the stages of grieving. So depending on who you ask, what source you look at, there's multiple stages of grieving. Some people have reported that they go through 12 stages of grieving. Some people have reported that they only go through 2. The stages of grieving are as individual as you are. There's no time frame in grief, and that's not from a book. That's real. That came from my mom, actually. There's a time for everything, and there's no measure on how long a person has to grieve, and there's no measure on how long that stage has to last. So I'm just going to talk to you about the 5 stages of grieving, because that's what I think are the most really significant stages that I myself have experienced. I'm not all the way through the stages of grieving, but I feel like there have been some stages that I've touched and some stages that I've gone through and still am in. Like I said, they're just as unique as you are. So the 5 stages are, the first one is obviously denial. With that being said, I want to read to you just a little passage from this first book here, A Time to Grieve. No, it can't be. It just can't be. Someone I love is gone, and my life is shattered into a million pieces. I want everything back, the way it used to be. God, are you there? Are you listening? I want my loved one back. I'm not ready to let go. That is so real, because it's exactly how the denial, it explains denial perfectly. It can't be. That's not real. This isn't happening to me. Like, that was a bad dream, right? Like, my son didn't just die. He's still at the hospital. He's still in the NICU. And there are some times when I really do just want to believe that so I don't have to feel the pain. So there are days when I'm still in the denial stage. And I'll be honest, it sucks. Because then I have to come back and say, no, Pam, you really do know that he's not there. And then that's where the second stage comes in, which is anger. And it's exactly what it says. Anger. You're angry. You're so angry. You're angry at anybody, anything. This book goes into a lot of details and, like what kind of anger people feel and what kind of blame they put on other people or other things based on what, how or the situations of death that you had to face. So, for example, a known illness is going to be a different type of grieving process than a sudden death. It's just going to be. When you find out that you have a child that has a it's so hard to talk about sometimes. When you find out that you have a child that has a incurable disease, a terminal illness, that they won't live very long, your grieving starts right away. Denial, that's not true. My kid's gonna live forever. Like, I'm gonna die before my child. Anger. Are you kidding me? This can't be happening. Why is this happening to me? And that's where the third stage comes in. Bargaining. I don't know how many of you believe in God, but I know that I have asked him, begged him, please take me instead. Take me instead. Please let my husband have my son, but take me instead. Take me instead. I would give you my life 100 times over, Aiden. 100 times over. That's exactly what the bargaining is. And the bargaining for me lasted only for a short period because there was nothing that I could do. And I tried so hard to make that grieving process, that grieving stage, so short for me because it was very detrimental to my health. When I was going through that stage, I became very depressed, very depressed. I wasn't sleeping. I barely was eating. If I did eat, it was a little bit. I tried to make myself seem like a happy and chipper person, but really on the inside, I was dying. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about how other people were feeling. I cared about how I was feeling because my heart was so broken. And it still is, but I've learned to, help other people so that, bargaining doesn't affect me as much. Depression is the next stage of grief. For some people, depression starts as soon as the denial does. For some people, depression starts before. For some people, depression never comes. Depression is a very serious thing, and on top of postpartum depression, generalized depression is not something that I wish on anybody. I don't wish on anybody to lose a child, but having the depression that comes with it, that you can't get out of, is even more horrible. And the last stage of grieving is acceptance. I'm nowhere near that. I don't know. I may never get there. I may never accept that he's gone, that he's dead. I may never accept that there is nothing I could do, because there's always something. You know, like, it's a ripple effect. And I strongly believe one action has a chain effect. Like, these videos that I'm making, hey, maybe no one's gonna see them right now, but they're out there, and maybe 5 years from now, someone's gonna see them that really needs to see them. And just like that acceptance, we need to accept, but it's okay if we don't. It's okay if we can't get there. It's okay if it takes us 80 years. Some people die never accepting that they've lost somebody. So there's 3 ends about grief. Grief is normal. Grief is natural. And grief is necessary. This book goes into explaining, it has like a few pages on why all of that, like why grief is normal, why it's necessary, why is it natural. I mean, I don't think that it's like a man-made thing. Grief is real. It's a response to an emotional response to losing somebody or a tragic thing happening. Aside from someone in your life dying, grief can happen if you are in a natural disaster. You lose a home, or you know, you're misplaced from your home for months or years. You can grieve that. Grief is, there's no measure and there's no time. It's just normal. There's another part in this book that I'm going to read. This actually really struck me as kind of amazing. And I'm going to try and make this quick because I know you guys don't like sitting here just listening to me. But they're myths about grief. And I kind of got angry like reading these, because I'm like, people actually say this, and I think about it and I'm like, yeah, people actually think this stuff, because I've heard it. Like, turning a blind eye to it, but I've heard it. So the first one, I'm not going to read all of them, but the first one that I'm going to read to you is this. A strong person should be able to get through a loss without showing emotion. Bullshit. Bullshit. I've heard from so many people that I'm a strong person, and I am the most emotional person that I know. And I know quite a few people, but I cry all the time. I do. My husband says that I have enough emotions for the both of us. It's true, because I do. If somebody tells you that you're being too emotional because you're grieving the loss of your child. I don't care how far, I don't care how long they've been gone. If you get emotional on their birthday or the date of their death, or you get emotional because you meet somebody that has a similar situation, that does not mean that you're not a strong person. Myth number 2 that I'm reading. You should pretty much be back to normal after 2 or 3 months. Fuck you. That's all I have to say. Fuck you. If someone says that to you, I'm sure that people have probably thought it. I'm sure people are probably sick and tired of seeing me post on social media about how, like, I miss my son. I don't care. You know what? It probably makes you uncomfortable, but think about how much I have to live with how uncomfortable it is knowing that my son isn't here anymore. So if you think, or there are people who think that you should be over your grieving of your child after 2 or 3 months has passed, tell them to stick it. Seriously, like, fuck off. Crying is a sign of weakness. This gets me because in my other video, I said that, when Aiden died, that was the first time that I had seen my husband cry. This is complete bull. Crying is not a sign of weakness. Crying is being strong enough to let your emotions get out. If you can't let your emotions get out and keeping them bottled up, your emotional health and your mental health need to be addressed. Grief gets easier as you grow older? No. Oh no. Or as time goes on? I love that. It's gonna get better. Just give it a few years. Really? Because each passing birthday, it gets better? Yeah, okay. It's never going to be better. My grieving stages will progress. I will grieve, and I will learn how to accept and deal with it. I will learn how to cope, but it's not going to get easier. My heart will never, ever be back to the way it was. I could live 3 lifetimes and my heart will never be back to a whole heart. And I hope that all of you know what I mean figuratively about that. This one's good. Losing an infant doesn't hurt because parents didn't have time to get to know the child. Fuck you. That's all I gotta say. Just fuck you. I carried that child in my belly. I felt him move. I seen him on ultrasounds. I've heard his heartbeat. I held him. I cuddled with him. I kissed his head. And you can't tell me that because he was an infant and because I didn't get to meet him or have time to get to know him, that it's easier for me. This one is pretty sensitive, so bear with me. Christians shouldn't grieve if they know their loved one is in heaven. They should feel joy. When we lose somebody who is dying of old age, that may be okay to feel joy that they're with God and, that's fine. if you want to think that. But when you lose a child, you want me to feel joy? Because, yeah, I admit, I know that he's in heaven. I know he's with God. I know that, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to feel joy about it. In no way, shape, or form will I feel joy. In fact, seriously, if you lose a person to suicide, if you lose a person to cancer, if you lose somebody to a car accident, it doesn't matter their age. You're going to feel joy because you know that they're in heaven? No, because it's human nature to be selfish. This one is continuing to talk about the person who died only makes pain last longer. No, it doesn't. Continuing to talk about my son makes me feel better, actually, because when I say his name, when I say Aiden, it makes me remember that he is my son. He wasn't just born and died and let's just forget about him. No. He lived and he's my son. This kind of goes with that question. How many children do you have? Today, I answer 4. Shortly after Aiden died, I would answer 2. I have 2 daughters. Because I didn't know how to tell people. I didn't know what to say to them. Oh, I have 3, but 1 just died. And then they're like, I'm sorry. I don't want to talk to you. Go away. You're like emotional and stuff. Okay. Bye. So, this is part 1. I am going to do another segment and upload for part 2. So, stay tuned because I will have another segment for this one. Or, another segment coming. Whatever. Okay? Subscribe, share my video. If you know anybody who is grieving and needs help, I have created a email address. It's thegrievingparent@gmail.com. Again, that's thegrievingparent@gmail.com. If you're friends with me on Facebook, I'll upload that email address, the link to my Facebook on my page, so you can just email me directly there if you'd like. Otherwise, just send me an email. I have some tips and pointers if you want to privately reach out to me. I can help. That's all for this video. Till next time.